Today we're working on another YouTube request. Kim's YouTube Designs asks, is there any possible way you could do a lesson on how to make your intro? It's amazing! Sounds good, here we go. Hey, what's up guys, Ryan Walker here. Welcome back to another tutorial. Hope you're having a great Friday. And today we're doing another request. I got a request on how to do the intro that's in the beginning of the channel that we see every week. So we're gonna dive right in. I think I'm gonna break this into two tutorials. We're gonna do one Sim 4D for the for the 3D people, and we're also gonna do some After Effects if people want to see just the After Effects part. So we're using Sim 4D and Octane render. So let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, cool. So today I'm kind of thinking of doing this a little bit different. Instead of showing you step-by-step tutorial, I'm going to kind of break down my actual project file so you can kind of see what I did and how it's sort of set up. So let's just kind of work our way through this and break down the 3D part and see, kind of how we get the intro to work out here. All right, cool. So the first thing you'll notice is we are inside Octane render here. Let me go ahead and send the scene back to Octane. And right now I have two GPUs in my machine, and I have 3 currently active on my network. So cool. So yeah, I did this in the Octane render just because of the speed and convenience. And I want to actually turn off the keys here. So there we go. So yeah, I decided to use Octane render for this just because I really like it. I really like the speed of it. Kind of get to see how my shadows look, a little bit faster, kind of get faster results. Really don't have to have Octane render for this, but I went ahead and used that. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these black bars. So I'm going to do Shift V, and I want to switch the view here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the tinted border right now, just so you can kind of see the whole scene here. And basically all this scene is I have a cyc wall here that I just put a bend effector in. Sort of just give it a little bit of a bend so you can't really see it when the camera is on the side. It kind of just curves around the camera a little bit. And otherwise what we have is I have a 3 camera setup here for the different angles in the intro. And let me get rid of this so we can look at Octane. And what I did, instead of using a stage object to switch between cameras, is I just went ahead and I rendered out these 3 separate cameras just because I wasn't quite sure how much handle I wanted or where I wanted to make it. So I went ahead and rendered out all 3 as separate renders. And just real quick, a little bonus thing if you want to know what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and add a stage object. And so in our stage object here, we can add cameras to it. So if I add camera 1, that is what our viewport will have from now on. And what you could do, instead of doing like how I did it, how I rendered out 3 separate scenes, you can go ahead and you can keyframe different cameras in here. So if I set a keyframe here, and let's go up a couple of frames, and let's add camera 2, and I set a keyframe there. And let's go ahead and set a keyframe right there. We'll move up. And we'll switch over to, we'll add camera 3 and add a keyframe there. So now this will go ahead and switch between the cameras inside of Sim 4D if you want to time out your project that way. So quick little side tutorial there. Hope that helps. But let's go ahead. I'm going to do Shift F3 and I'm going to delete. Actually, I might just delete the whole stage since we don't need it. Let's just delete that. Get rid of the attributes manager. And let's go ahead and keep going. So what we got going on here is this Fenix logo, and it's shattered and it's coming back together. So this is similar to another tutorial I have where I do a fractured logo intro. It's kind of the exact sort of same techniques. And instead of extruding the pieces, we're just bringing them together from the distance back into our logo. So let me go ahead and show you how we kind of get to that point. So inside our little logo null here, what I did is half of the logo was cut up, and this half of the logo is just the extruded path from Illustrator. I knew I only wanted one half to come together, so I didn't need to fracture and cut up the whole logo, just the part that I wanted to animate. So how I did that, similar to the other tutorial, is let's go ahead and I'll bring out this duplicate copy that I have. And all I did is I went ahead and I selected, let's see, let's make sure we have the right side here. So I just kind of organize these in a way that, let's see, let's just do this. So let's just go ahead and grab these 3 paths. We know these are the ones we want to work with. I'll go ahead and group these. Let's just turn them off so we don't have to see them. And let's get out the camera so we can look at this. And so if you've seen the other tutorials, it's the same sort of technique. I just went ahead and grabbed all these, and I'm in R16 right now, and I know R18 has the new fractured object Veroni cutter, or whatever they're calling it. It's the same sort of thing as what this plugin's doing. And what I'm going to use is Thrausi. So I'm going to go ahead and use Thrausi. We'll say, maybe 20 pieces or so. Do Veroni. Let's go ahead and randomize it. And we'll go ahead and break it up. And so what this is doing is it's cutting each part up 20 times by each object. So let's go ahead and let this break up, and we'll see what we get. All right, cool. So what that plugin just did is it broke up our logo, and now we have all these individual pieces. And what it does is it puts into a fracture object for us automatically. Fracture object's turned off, but it also gives us a dynamics tag. So if I went ahead and I played this, the logo is going to go ahead and fall to the ground. So I didn't need that. So I just deleted all the dynamics tags. And what I kind of did here is I looked at everything and I kind of brought the chunks out. And if I kind of said to myself, well, this chunk is kind of too big, I don't want it rotating as one piece, once we put it in a plane effector, I went ahead and I just selected the big piece. I cut that piece up individually using Thrausi again. So I just went ahead and I would do break now. And I would kind of just keep breaking everything up until I got small enough chunks to where, I liked it. Well, what looked okay to me. So let's go ahead and I'll let that finish breaking up, and we'll kind of keep moving forward through the line here and keep talking about everything else. All right, cool. So as you see, that got done, and now I have these little individual chunks from that one big chunk that I didn't really want. So let's go ahead and delete these. And I'll go ahead and delete this logo. So now we're back. So now we're at this point where we have our pieces broken up. Let me go ahead and do... All right, cool. So now we have our pieces broken up, and this is where we just left off. And so what I did with the cut up section is I went ahead and I turned on the fracture objects. They were turned off originally. I turned them on, and what I did is, let's turn this off and let's look at our... I'm going to bring up our attributes manager. And so what I did inside of each of these is I just added a quick plane effector. So right now, right here, I have the plane effector turned off. So let's go ahead and turn it back on and kind of see what it's doing here. And to make this a little bit easier to see, I might turn off the cyc wall. And so what we have is we have a plane effector that is keyframed. And all it's doing is just moving left to right. And the only really the only attributes I'm using, let's bring that back up, is I have a slight position change in Z, while everything's also rotating a little bit once the plane effector is pushing it away. So, if I click rotation, it's just going to do position. So, if I just have rotation, it's just going to rotate. So I kind of had the rotation going here. Is I want it to be away from us at first and kind of rotate and push back into position. So all I did was turn on the position, made sure our fall off instead of infinite, which it kind of starts at. Just going to move that up here really quick. So instead of infinite, I had it set to linear. So that way, everything on this side of the plane effector is going to get pushed away. So if I was to bring this all the way back, the whole piece is pushed away. And if I bring it up, it's slowly bringing each section in. So it's just a really simple way to, have that fracture object be affected by a plane effector. And just with a simple move, we kind of get that nice little fall off there. And, I won't go too much into specific settings, but I do have, some fall off and kind of just some little subtleties there that you can just kind of play with and get to, just get to something that you like. So there we go. That's kind of the main bones of this. And, let's go ahead and talk about the lighting. So what I did to light this is I'm just using a texture. I'm using the abstract texture from Grayscale Gorilla. And that's kind of giving my overall, subtle reflections here. And let's see here. Let's just kind of rotate this in a little bit. And then I kind of got some different things going on for the lighting. I have an overall daylight, which, kind of gave me those nice long shadows on top that I liked. And let's turn all these fill octane lights off. And basically what I kind of used these other lights for is just to sort of fill in places that kind of felt too dark. So out here I kind of have this light out on the side, which is pointing towards this side of the wall. So I would assume, let's see, if I kind of look over this way and if I turn that light off, I assume it's kind of lighting the wall. Yeah, so I wanted that to stay white. It was a little dark on that side, so I was just filling in a little bit more light. Let's go ahead and take a look at this light and see what it does. So it's giving us a nice little blue undertone on this side of the wall. And this guy's giving us a little orange highlight on the side. And our center light is kind of just lighting the middle of the whole scene, giving us a little bit of reflections there. Real subtle, just kind of tweaking it and honing it in, with each little step. So let's go ahead and kind of look at the final resolve camera and sort of see what we have here. And what I'm going to do for this final scene is I do have a separate project file because I broke it up. Once I got the final look, I broke up the project into 3 projects, so that way I could just add them all to the render queue and get nice little handles and set edit points wherever I needed them. So I set this as Fenix Intro 2 would be our final camera. And so let's go ahead and just sort of push this out. Let me send the scene back to Octane so we can take a look at it. And there we go. This scene is pretty much the same in every way. I just have a slight camera move, dolling us out and kind of coming to a rest. So, it's kind of a quick breakdown of how to build it. And let's kind of just go over some of my settings here. I did do it at 24 frames per second, which is in the project settings. And also make sure if you want to, switch it up, your output settings are also the same rate. And I did go with 1920 by 816 because I know I wanted that widescreen look. And let me do Shift V again, just since we're in a new project file. And I'll take this tinted border off just so we can look around it. Let me open up camera 1B, or project file 1B, since this is my second camera. And let's send that scene back to Octane. And the reason I just wanted to show you this really quick is just to sort of talk about the Octane camera settings I have going on here. So what I do have is I do have the aperture cranked up a little bit. So, if I increase the f-stop all the way or basically make the aperture 0, I wouldn't get any depth of field. But if I undo that and got a little bit of increase the aperture a little bit there, I get a nice little depth of field. And if I want, I could pick the focus to be somewhere else on this shape just by clicking here. So that's kind of my focal depth that I got going on there. I do have a little bit of slight post-processing. Let me turn that on and off so you can see it. And basically the only post-processing I'm using is I'm giving everything just a little bit of a bloom and a little bit of a glare. You can see if I sort of turn this up, hopefully you can see that. It's a real subtle. I'll make it, I'll exaggerate a little bit so you can kind of see what's happening inside the camera here. And if I want, I could change sort of the streaks of my lens flare. Let me turn the blur down so you can kind of see that. Or I can add multiple sort of aperture, or not even really aperture, but just sort of fake lens flares there. Little lens glares. So let me undo that and get back to where we were. And the other thing I have going on in all these cameras, and it might actually be so subtle that you can't even see it, is I do have a vibrate tag to sort of give it a little bit of a handheld feel. And the only parameters I'm using is, I just added the vibrate tag, and I have position except for Z. So I have up and down and left and right, but not back and forth. And a little bit of rotation on the head of the camera. So if I go ahead and let me pause Octane here for a second, and let's see what happens when I kind of start just cranking these settings up. We start getting some pretty outrageous camera wobble here. And so that's cranking up the position. Let me turn that off, and let me crank up the rotation on the head of the camera. So this is our left to right pan. Bring it back to 1. This is our up and down sort of pan. And this is the rotation of the head that you see going on there. Frequency just sort of increases how much it does per second. So the more you crank that up, more crazy it's going to get. And there we go. All right, so that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and undo some of this. And I'm just going to hold V, go to projects, and go back to the, we'll go back to the end camera here. So let me send this back to Octane, and I'll kind of show you the sort of the last thing I did to be able to add some text holders that I wanted to be able to add 3D text inside of After Effects. So that was real simple. All I did is I have a null here, just right here in the middle of the scene. And what I did is I just add an external compositing tag. And what that allows me to do is get this 3D null data inside of After Effects so I can add text or anything I need inside of 3D space. And of course I could bring in the Cinema 4D project and use Cineware and all that good stuff. This was simple enough that all I needed was one null to add a little bit of text that you see at the end there. So the last thing I'll kind of talk about here is let's take a look. I want to make Octane full screen here. And let's take a look at my render settings. So all I did was 512 samples. I am in path tracing and no specular since I don't have anything transparent. And in case you wanted to see sort of what I'm working with, static noise, these are the settings that I used, and maybe that works for you. I like to use the bare minimum I can so I don't spend too much time rendering in Cinema 4D, and I like to make the rest look nice in After Effects. So the reason I wanted to make this last frame full screen before we sort of end the 3D part of this is I just want to get ready to talk about what we're going to be talking about in part 2, which is compositing and making it look nicer in After Effects, because we can take this simple image and take it a long way. So this is the before straight 3D render, and this just gives it a little bit more of a look inside of After Effects. I went ahead and I wanted to make it a little bit more overall of an orangey cast. We've got kind of a nice little glow going on here, a little bit of chromatic aberration, and it's just not so sharp and not so perfect. But this is kind of the style I liked for me at this time. You might like something different, and that's totally fine. But big contrast from where we just finished and where we're going. So there we go. I hope that helps. Kind of just a quick breakdown. Let me know if you guys like this style more versus a pixel by pixel, click by click tutorial. And, that's something we can work out more in the future. So again, tune in next week for part 2 when we take the renders and we break down how to make it look a little bit nicer inside of After Effects and sort of give it a look. So subscribe for that if you want to see that. And until then, have a great Friday, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. We 3D tracked it, and we have some Z space going on, and it just looks pretty cool. We're going to have our beams follow it no matter where we reposition it.